Welcome to episode 58 of the 301 show. We got a great episode on tap for you today. The Timberwolves have some weird behind the scenes stuff that is being made public right now. The Vikings have some rumored interest in some players in terms of quarterback options, as well as some roster moves that they are going to be making. And the injury bug has come for the Minnesota Twins. All of that and more here on episode 58 of the 301 show.
From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
If you do like this episode, please leave a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. It is free to subscribe. You can unsubscribe at a later date if you don't like the content that we put out here. And then comment down below just anything, whether you agree with what I'm saying, whether you disagree. You can leave that in the comment section down below as well. Let's get into it. All right, moving on to the first segment of the episode, the Wolves Den. The Timberwolves are up to 38-23 on the season. They are 20-11 at home. They're 18-12 on the road. They're up to 4th in the Western Conference and 7th in the entire NBA. They have 119.1 points for per game, and they're giving up 114.6 points against per game. They've played 5 games since the last episode that we did, since episode 57. The Mavericks and the 76ers were in town out of the All-Star break. The Wolves beat the Mavericks 122-111. Then they lost 138-108 to the Philadelphia 76ers. And that was the Embiid-less 76ers too. So that was a brutal loss to finish out the homestand. It went on a 3-game road trip in Portland to start, where they won 124-121. And then they traveled down to LA to play the Clippers and won that one 94-98. And then beat the Nuggets 117-108 the other night. I believe that was an afternoon game on Sunday, maybe. I can't remember fully off the top of my head. I think that's when that Nuggets game was. You've got 3 games, or let's talk about the couple of games here. We're gonna look ahead here and then we'll go back. So they've got a 3-game homestand coming up here. They play the Memphis Grizzlies at home on Tuesday, March 3rd at 7 p.m. That's tonight as I am recording this. And then they play the Toronto Raptors at 7 p.m. on Thursday, March 5th. And then they play the Orlando Magic at 2 p.m. on Saturday, March 7th. So those are the next 3 games for the Wolves. But if you look back here, and there's some things that we need to talk about from the last 5 games. The first one is that 76ers game. That was kind of unacceptable from this team, and a team that has championship expectations here this year. They can't be losing to teams like that, especially the team like the 76ers without Embiid. Like, the 76ers are just not doing that well and they were out their best player on top of that, and you still lost by 30 points in that one. And that's, again, no matter who, like Rudy, I don't think was playing that game. So they had players out. The Sixers are 33-27. So like they're doing pretty well actually. But you just can't be losing to teams that I think are like the 76ers, I believe, are worse than the Timberwolves, and they still lost by 30 points. And the Wolves had players out, but so did the 76ers had by far and away their best player out in that game in Joel Embiid. But Ant played for the Timberwolves, and yes, Rudy was out, but you still had Jaden McDaniels, and you had Julius Randle, and you had Anthony Edwards. And yes, like Rudy Gobert and Naz Reid were both out, but that should not be an excuse to lose by 30 to the 76ers. If those guys were out and you had lost by, 8 or less points, that'd be more acceptable in my opinion. Like that'd be understandable. But I just that loss was just like an insane loss. But they did follow it up. They did bounce back with 3 wins in a row, which again, they seem to do this every single year with just coming out of the All-Star break really, really well. And they kind of need to, because a lot of the last few seasons they've dug themselves kind of a little bit of a hole that they need to dig themselves out of. And like they were in a playoff spot. They've basically been in the 6th seed the entire season. But they want to get that home court advantage, and at least for the first round. And right now, with that win over the Nuggets, they are in a position to get home court advantage. They're 1 game up on said Denver Nuggets for the 4 seed. The Nuggets are in the 5 seed. And what's really nice too is the Suns have fallen off, and they're the 7 seed, which is the top seed in the play-in tournament. So I don't know if you're 100% going to have to worry about that, but that shouldn't be your goal. Your goal shouldn't be to just stay out of the play-in tournament. It should be getting home court advantage. Like, this is a team that has made back-to-back conference championships. So you should like, there's also a difference too, in my opinion, between like the Shaq and Kobe Lakers and this team. The Shaq and Kobe Lakers, they won 3 championships in a row, and they were like, well, we can kind of take our foot off the gas a little bit here in the regular season, because we know we'll turn it on. Like, this team hasn't even been to a championship. They haven't been to a championship in the franchise history. Like, you need to win at least 1 championship so you know what it takes to turn it on before you're taking the foot off the gas. And because that's what it seems like. It doesn't seem like it's a like this team. It just doesn't seem like they're half trying, like they're trying really hard and then just coming up short on certain nights. So some nights they are, but it seems like a lot of their losses are more of a we just don't want to fully show up for this game. Is just that's what it seems like. And again, I'm not in the locker room. I'm not back, and so I don't know 100% that that's the case. But what is being shown on the court, that's just what it seems like from an outside perspective. So I just am worried about that continuing into the playoffs here, because you can't get away with that against a team like the Denver Nuggets, who you would play in the first round if the season were to end today. So they need to. I feel like it's the consistency is my big worry about this team is consistency, whether that's the team as a whole or individual players. It's consistency. But there's also like some weird stuff going on with the coaching staff and between the coaching staff and the players. There was like a month ago that report that came out that we discussed about the Rudy Gobert comments and Chris Finch saying that they like to keep things in-house and deal with things in-house. But another thing came up here in that game against the LA Clippers where they won by 6 points. Anthony Edwards had missed a shot late in the game that would have kind of put a dagger in the Clippers. And so he missed a shot, and then the ball went down and to the other end. And they get the ball back and go back down to the offensive end. Finch told Ant, pass the ball. Like, you got to pass the ball. And Ant shot the ball, and it ended up going in. And he said, don't tell me to pass the ball. That's what the F I do. And I think a couple of things. One, I would be really very, very concerned if any play, even in a vacuum, if any player on this team, except for Anthony Edwards, told Chris Finch that. Any other player other than Ant, this is very, very concerning. But the fact that it was Ant makes it more okay, because he is your superstar. He needs to be trusted to shoot the ball in those situations. But when you add in the fact that they've had issues with the coaching staff and the players, like in between them, and Rudy was talking about how they don't hustle 100% of the time, and said that, yeah, that was a problem. But then he said that they also need the coaching staff to get on them for it and blame the coaching staff as well. Like, when you add that part of it in, this is a lot more concerning. And the quotes, there's quotes came out afterwards, like Finch said to Colin Cowherd on the Colin Cowherd show, listen, we're both fiery competitors. It's been part of our relationship since day one. We have a phenomenally talented player who makes great shots, and he's a closer, and he's taken major strides in that department, and we're lucky to have him. This is not the first game-winning shot he's made for us this season, but he also has the burden of responsibility of making his teammates better and making the right play, and that's what we're preaching to him all the time. He's really emotional. I'm emotional. We say these things to each other and we move on. We don't take it personally. I didn't think the comments after the game were mean-spirited. I thought he was just joking around. We just jab back and forth with each other. These guys are super competitive and they're prideful. Sometimes you got to stroke that fire, and sometimes it comes back on you, but that's part of it, which I completely agree with Chris Finch on this statement here is if him saying, hey, pass the ball to Ant makes Ant shoot it and make it and gets that competitive juice. Like, no, you did not tell me to pass up the spotlight, basically. Then do that every time. Obviously, like, just tell him that a lot. And I do think that Ant is the guy that you can trust to make those types of shots. I completely agree with Chris Finch on that. But at the same time, I also completely agree with Finch of he needs to make the right play. And yes, the ball did go in. And yes, he ended up making the shot the second time. But you can't rely only on that. You can't only rely on Anthony Edwards to make that last second shot. So you got to be able to trust, like, the basketball is a team game. You're not baseball up there, by yourself. And it's you versus the pitcher. It's your 5 guys on the court versus their 5 guys on the court. And if unless you're Steph Curry at the Olympics where you're getting, double guarded, unless it's that, don't take the shot. Like, you can like, if you see that you have the wide open shot like that, and that's fine. But 99.9% of the time, if you're being guarded like that, there's somebody open somewhere else that has an easier shot to make. No, again, that it paid off because he did make it, and they did win the game. But Anthony Edwards responded with after the game. He said, he was asked about it. He goes, "Me and my coach got the best relationship ever. I mean, he be right most of the time. 98% of the time, he be right. He told me to pass the ball tonight, and I should have passed it, but I shot it instead, and it went in. The basketball gods were on my side tonight." And yeah, they were. Like that was, again, like he said, Finch, I think Finch is a smart coach at this point. Like he is a good coach, and he has coached this team to back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. It's there's only been 3 times that this team has even made it out of the first round in their franchise history, and 2 of them have been under Chris Finch, in the Chris Finch head coaching tenure. But I just think that there's some concern here of your coach tells you something, and like there's just stress and disagreement in it, and you're not going to be able to, keep control of the locker room if this keeps happening, because this is seemingly like a repeat thing for this team, and it's that is my biggest concern, is like the kind of rift between player and coach seems to be going up, and it seems to be like more of a thing as the season goes on, and it's just, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I am reading this completely wrong, but the rift between the coaching staff and the players are, I don't want to say it's there, like it's widening, but it's at least a little bit noticeable at this point. And there's, most of the time it's good, but again, it's like the way they play. It's most of the time it's really, really good, but there are those times that they do get blown out, or the riff shows itself even in wins, and I don't think you're going to be able to win a championship with that type of play and riff there between players and coaches. So, yeah, it's just a weird situation that happened in Los Angeles. We got two other pieces of news here to go over. First one is also about Ant, so we'll go over that one first. He was fined $25,000 for throwing the ball into the stands after he got heated. It was not the Clippers. He's emotional there, but he did get fined $25,000. The other piece of news is that Kyle Anderson is signing with the Timberwolves per Shams. So Slow-Mo is being brought back to the team. He was on the team a few years ago, and he is being brought back now. So that helps fill out the Wolves bench here at this point. We got a few predictions that came off the board. Here are some trade deadline predictions. And I'm realizing one of them I said I would fix the spelling on, but I did not. But again, it just still comes off the board. So the first one I said is Tim Conley makes at least 3 trades before the deadline. He did not make 3 trades. He made 2. I said that at the beginning, or like in the off season at some point, and he didn't make any trades. So made a couple of signings, but not trades. I said the Timberwolves beat the Mavericks and the 76ers out of the All-Star break. 1 second here. So I said they beat the Mavericks and the 76ers out of the All-Star break. They obviously lost to the 76ers. So that is also incorrect. I said the Wolves win the rest of their games in March. I meant to say in February, as we are in March currently. So that one comes off the board as incorrect, as they did lose to the 76ers. I said Naz Reid starts at least 25 games this season. He has started 2 games so far this year, and there is 22 games left in the regular season, so he cannot hit that 25 game. And I did mean the regular season here. And then finally, Anthony Edwards scores 40 plus against the 76ers and or Mavericks, and he did in one of those 2 games. And I'm forgetting off the top of my head which one it was, but that brings me up to 45 correct out of 142 total predicted for 32%. 32% lands the Wolves Den segment in 3rd place in the segment rankings here. So the Wolves Den is in 3rd. 3 predictions coming on the board here. Said the Wolves win 53 plus games this year. If you average it out, their winning percentage now to an 82 game season, they would win 51 games. So I'm saying they're going to win a couple more games. They're going to heat up here and win more than they're projected to win as of right now. I also said the Wolves will win the next 3 home games. So the 3 home games that we discussed there, they're going to win those 3 games. And then in those 3 games, Ant is going to put up 40 plus points in at least one of them. All right, moving on to target field talkers. We basically just have some injury bugs to talk about here. Or the injury bug keeps hitting the Twins here. Some of it, ended up turning out good or better than what they thought, I should say. And then other guys are going to be out for a while. But first one is Royce Lewis. Last Thursday, he was scratched from a lineup against Pittsburgh with tightness on his right side. He went in, this is via Dan Hayes of The Athletic. He went in for imaging, and he reported a positive outcome. So it ended up being fine. The second guy I want to talk about is Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan was scratched from his first spring training start due to back tightness, but is expected to make his spring training debut soon. So with these 2 guys specifically, these 2 injuries, my question is basically just, my question with these 2 guys is like, I don't know if this is like the training staff's fault. If you could, I'm not going to put the blame on these injuries on just one, solely on one group or one the person or whatever. But if they're tight, is the guy just not or is either Royce or Joe not stretching out enough before the game? Is that what this is? Is he because tightness seems to be seems to mean that they need to stretch more. Again, from my unprofessional, not a doctor diagnosis, I guess, it seems like they just need to stretch, and I'm sure it's more than, I'm sure that there's more going on behind the scenes, but I don't know, these two, was it just they slept on it wrong too? Because it's not not like you run into the wall and you get banged up from that, or you're reaching for the base, like another injury here we'll get into, you're trying to beat out a double play and your leg is reaching out for a base and you strain a hamstring. Like that seems different. The fact that they're just tight, they're not hurt, seems like they just didn't get prepared enough for the game, and that's a separate issue at that point. Like that's a whole other issue. Like they need to be more prepared for the games if that is actually the case. And I'm not saying it is. I just have questions about it. And I just, again, like these two guys, Royce Lewis and Joe Ryan, to me are two of the top three guys here that are going to help the success of the Twins in 2026. If they want to make the play, I don't think that this year this is a World Series winning or even contending team. But if they want to make the playoffs, Royce Lewis and Joe Ryan need to be playing. Joe Ryan, all of his scheduled starts, and Royce Lewis needs to be playing 140 games this year. Like they need these two to show up and show out. And that other guy too is playing with Team USA in the World Baseball Classic, and Byron Buxton, and these are the guys that need to. That are going to carry this team, I feel like, to put their guys, put the team on their back and get going. So the fact that they're just missing starts from like a non-contact or a non-playing injury is raises a little bit of a red flag for me here in spring training. And maybe it is just we're early in spring training. They'll be fine by opening day. And that's what I hope it is. But a guy that won't be ready for opening day is David Festa, and the report is that he is likely to start the season on the injured list. He missed the final 2 months of 2025 with a shoulder injury, and that same shoulder injury is going to keep him out for the start of 2026. So they will be down a pitcher. Not that they weren't down, quote unquote, down pitchers already. They will be down a guy that was trying to potentially make the starting rotation, especially with Pablo's injury here, or could have been in the bullpen too. Another guy, fourth guy, got injured that's going to be out for a while too. Second guy that's going to be out for a while. Fourth guy that had some weird injury stuff. Is Walker Jenkins. So Walker Jenkins got drafted by the Twins in 2023. We're doing a little bit of a Walker Jenkins Twins history lesson here. He was drafted in 2023. In 2024, he was out for 6 weeks with a left hamstring strain. In 2025, he was out for 2 months with a left ankle sprain that led to lingering soreness. So he was out for 2 months for that. And now in 2026, like I mentioned before, we'll bring up another guy that had an injury like this. He tried to beat out a double play, a ground ball double play, and left the game. He came up limping and left the game, and it turned out that he has a grade 1 left hamstring strain, which I don't know why all of these injuries keep happening on the left side of his lower body into his lower leg, or his left leg, excuse me. But he will be likely out for a few weeks here. And I don't know if it didn't look like he was fully going to make the opening day Twins roster. He was probably going to start in the minor leagues anyway, but now he'll have to start there for a rehab assignment instead of just continuing to develop for at least the first couple months of the 2026 season. That's another one here is not an injury, but another report here. I got this from the Score North Twin show, Declan Goff. He did say that it sounds like Liam Hendricks is going to either make the Twins roster as the closer for this team, or he is going to be sent to AAA. Like, they're not going to keep him on as any other type of reliever. He'll be the closer, or he won't make the team. And I think he is good enough to be the closer on this team. And Part of that is just because they don't really have anyone else. Maybe Taylor Rogers. My guess is it's either going to be Taylor Rogers or Liam Hendricks getting the most the closer opportunity, save opportunities, we'll say, and or it'll be some sort of like rotation. But if there's a singular guy that gets the most, it's either going to be Liam Hendricks or Taylor Rogers, in my opinion. But yeah, that's the last piece of news here from the Twins. The predictions, I had 3 come off the board. 1 should have come off the board last year, but I kept trying to look to see if I could find the full version of the speech, and I could not, so I could not verify this. But the first one is wrong. It is Corey Koski's Twins Hall of Fame speech will mention Joe Mauer, Justin Morneau, Ron Gardenhire, and Tom Kelly by name and or nickname. And he mentioned a couple of them, but not all of them. So that comes off as wrong. The Twins do not sign or re-sign a player above $30 million AAV this offseason. That one is basically a given, but that comes off as correct. And then I said the Twins will not sign Zach Gallen before February 1st. I made that prediction when there was a report around Thanksgiving time that they were maybe interested in Zach Gallen. So that one comes off as correct. That is 32 total correct predicted out of 104 predicted for 32%. 3 coming on the board here. I said Royce Lewis will be injured 1 or less times in 2026. So I have a feeling he's going to stay on the field. And then the second prediction here is that Joe Ryan will be traded before the 2026 MLB trade deadline. I think if they're just not having a great year, they're probably going to try to blow it up again, with the limited resources they still have. Final prediction is that Byron Buxton will play 140 plus MLB games in 2026. He's going to, I think his most is 145. So this would get him pretty close to what his career high is. But I think he's going to be mostly healthy here in 2026 and this is 140 plus MLB games. So if he's at a rehab assignment in the minor leagues, that will not count for this. All right, moving on to the Nordic Report now. I've got 2 Kevin Seifert reports here that about the Vikings roster and some roster moves that they have for this offseason. The first report is that the Vikings have informed both Aaron Jones and Javon Hargrave that they will be cutting them at the end of the season if they are not able to find trade partners, or they'll cut them at the beginning of the new league year. They said Jones being cut will save $7.75 million, and Hargrave will being cut will save $10.9 million. And the Vikings are $40 million over the cap right now, so they do need to make a lot of roster cuts at this point. So Aaron Jones and Javon Hargrave are the first to go. And they do have basically like at least another guy in that area with Jonathan Allen being a D tackle. They'll need to find a replacement for Hargrave on that defensive line. And then Aaron Jones being cut leaves Jordan Mason as the running back 1 as of now. They'll likely find replacements for both of those players. But they'll likely be cheaper options at those 2 positions. The other report here from Kevin Seifert is that the Vikings are open at least to trading Jonathan Grenard. And that trading Jonathan Grenard will leave I think, well, one, it would save money. And that's, again, the name of this offseason so far. But trading Jonathan Grenard means that they are going to have more room for Dallas Turner to get in and get reps, and because you gave up a lot to go get Dallas Turner, and I think they want to see him play, and I think Brian Flores wants to get Dallas Turner more time and have the edge rushers be Van Ginkel on one side and Dallas Turner on the other side, and those are two very, very good edge rushers. And you would have more of a two-headed monster in that, and then some guys that can fill in on reps every once in a while instead of doing like a three-man rotation, basically. So that was the second report on from Kevin Seifert. Again, they just have way more. They need to get way more cap compliant. They need to cut a lot more cap to get cap compliant at this point. I would not be surprised if a Ryan Kelly got cut, the starting center, if he got cut to save money. And I think TJ Hawkinson will not be back with the Vikings on the current deal. He's either going to get a reworked deal or he's going to be asked to just take a pay cut, or he's going to be traded, or he's going to be just cut completely. So TJ Hawkinson, if he is on the roster in 2026, it will not be under his current deal there. I think they could rework Justin Jefferson's contract, and the easiest way to do that is convert his base salary into a signing bonus, and then that's all guaranteed up front. You would pay that all up front. And then for the accounting purposes, you would spread that over the next couple years. And you can do that over the length of the rest of his contract. And so they would be expecting that the salary cap would go up in those years. So the percentage of the salary cap that it would take up would remain relatively the same. So there's other options that they can do to get under the cap, and I don't think they're going to get close to like having $50 million of cap space, because I think they're $40 million over the cap right now. So I'm not expecting them to go out and make massive free agency signings at this point. But just to restock a little bit here, they need to make at least some room. And one of those positions I think that they're trying to make room for is quarterback. And I have here 6 quarterbacks that I think are realistic options here for the Vikings. I think these are the 6 options. The first 3 options are to come in and compete with J.J. McCarthy for the starting spot. The next 2, I think you would give them the starting spot, just automatically. You wouldn't sign or trade for them without them being your starting quarterback. And then the last one, it would be bring back and have him basically just be the backup to J.J. McCarthy if you wanted to roll. And I will, as I go over each of those things, I'll give pros and cons for each of those categories. I'll give pros and cons for just the category itself of why they should or shouldn't do that category. So we'll start with the 3 quarterbacks that I think are going to be the compete with J.J. McCarthy for a spot. Those 3 quarterbacks are Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and Geno Smith. I think those are 3 realistic options. Again, this is also assuming that Aaron Rodgers does not retire. Retirement is a very, very likely option, or I should maybe very, very likely or very, very realistic option for Aaron Rodgers at this point. But with Kirk, I think for him, he would be okay, I think, being the backup to McCarthy, as long as he had gotten promised that he could be, having a legitimate chance. But if McCarthy actually wins out, that's the big thing for these three, is they need to be okay if McCarthy legitimately beats them out for the starting spot. The Rodgers, I think, kind of his big con here is the fact that he just, at his age and coming, you're now a couple years removed from that injury, but that injury is still a thing. He does not have the correct ADOT is what they call it, the average depth of target, that KOC likes to call plays on. KOC loves to have a deep average depth of target. Aaron Rodgers, I don't know if he can do that. But on the other hand, the pro for Aaron Rodgers is, because he would be throwing it shorter, your offensive line wouldn't need to hold up for as long. So there's more of a pro for Aaron Rodgers. I think Geno Smith is probably kind of the best of the both worlds on that, is he can get the ball further downfield but he still is getting the ball relatively quickly out of his hands. And when you hear Geno Smith, don't just automatically say, no, I don't want him because of that year in Vegas. It'd be like comparing, Sam Darnold, because you don't want him because of his time with the Jets. It's like, that was a miserable franchise. That is just a garbage franchise at this point that can't make sense of itself at this point. And so I almost want to just not even count that at all. So that's the thing with Geno Smith, is yes, he had a terrible year last year, but I am more willing to give him a pass on that. But yeah, so those are my three, could come in and compete with JJ McCarthy. It's just those three, I think, also have options to be a better chance of being a starter somewhere else. And I think that like maybe not Geno Smith, but like Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins could including Geno Smith. What am I saying? So those three could go to New York and play for the Jets. They could, could one of those guys be okay with starting the first couple months of the season in Kansas City and before Patrick Mahomes comes back, and then taking a back seat to Mahomes and potentially trying to win a ring in Kansas City? Like, that might actually be their preferred option, was we still get 2 to 3 months of starting time, but we're trying to win a ring here. And Mahomes definitely helps that out. The next two I have as Vikings options are you would basically just be done with JJ McCarthy. And I think the pro to this is, yes, JJ McCarthy didn't have a great year last year. And yes, they went on a 5-game winning streak at the end of the year where he looked better, but the winning streak was more because of the defense than the offense, and he still didn't look great. But the con to this is you would be giving up on him early, and it is like a Baker Mayfield or a Sam Darnold or Geno Smith back with Seattle, where they are just like it might take him a couple more years to develop. But those two guys that I have here in this category are Malik Willis and Mac Jones. So Malik Willis is probably going to get $30 million a year for 2 or 3 years. probably 2 years. I should say $20 to $30 million a year for 2 to 3 years. And I think if you do that, I don't think you're starting JJ McCarthy. I don't think you're going to pay $20 to $30 million for a guy that's going to be your backup. Like, that just does not make financial sense. Like, Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers, and Kirk Cousins, I believe, are going to be on the cheaper end, maybe $10 million at most. And I'm more willing to pay $10 million for a backup quarterback, especially when you're paying J.J. McCarthy not that much money. So Malik Willis, I don't think is going to be cheap. And so I do think you would go and trade J.J. McCarthy away. Mac Jones, he is under contract for one more year with the San Francisco 49ers. So you would need to trade for him. He's not worth that much money. I think it's $4.5 million, something like that. I should have looked it up. But everything that I'm hearing on a Mac Jones potential trade is a second round pick, possibly a first round pick for Mac Jones. And I don't know if I want to give up a second round pick for a guy that you are going to start for 1 year. And so I would want a longer term deal for that. But again, that means you're giving up on JJ McCarthy. And again, so I don't know if I would trade for Mac Jones if you thought JJ McCarthy was your guy. So that's the give up on JJ McCarthy bin, I guess. Give up on JJ McCarthy in 2026 bin, I should say, because some of these options you could give up on him in 2027, because that is a stacked quarterback draft class at this point. But the final option, if you do think, and honestly, this could be where I'm leaning at this point. I'm probably leaning to a Kirk Cousins or Carson Wentz at this point, which that is my last one here is Carson Wentz. He would come in and be the backup. So I would prefer one of the guys that is either going to compete with J.J. McCarthy or the guy that's clearly going to be the backup. I think Carson Wentz, you would bring in a backup here. And I think that is probably the better option for the team, long-term team success. I do not know if that is what the Vikings are going to do, because I think the Wilfs could be putting pressure on the front office and the Kevin O'Connell coaching staff to be, we're making the playoffs next year. Like that was unacceptable. Bring in a better quarterback. Whereas like the better option might be, no, start J.J. McCarthy and see if because he's only played 10 games in his NFL career. So start J.J. McCarthy and see if he's actually a bust or if he could turn into a viable NFL quarterback. So if he's not, either he is a viable NFL quarterback and you just don't have to give up anything and you've got your guy, or he's not and you still have your first round pick in the stacked 2027 quarterback class and you just go with a quarterback there. So that is again, just do not give up on J.J. McCarthy is my plan, my preferred plan for the quarterback discussion here with the Vikings. There was 2 mock drafts that came out, or a couple of mock drafts that came out. There's 2 that I want to go over here. The first one is from Jordan Reed. He came out with a mock draft, and he had the Vikings sticking and picking at 18 and taking Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle out of Florida, which again, if that Seifert report is true that they are parting ways with Javon Hargrave, a D tackle is not a bad idea at the 118. Lance Zerlin had a mock draft, and he had the Vikings sticking and picking at 118. And he had the Vikings taking Dylan Thieneman, a safety out of Oregon. So 2 defensive players being mocked to the Vikings. And to be fair, too, those are probably the 2 biggest defensive needs for the Vikings right now. I think D tackle and safety, especially if Harrison Smith retires. If he doesn't, Harrison Smith's going to retire in the next couple of years anyway. So a safety is not that bad. And then either cutting or trading Javon Hargrave, you need a defensive tackle too. So my I had no predictions come off the board here, speaking of predictions. But I have 3 predictions coming on the board. First one is that the Vikings will trade Jonathan Grenard this offseason. Second prediction is that Kirk Cousins or Carson Wentz will be on the Vikings roster in 2026. And my final prediction here is that the Vikings' first pick in the 2026 draft, so it doesn't need to be the first round pick, but just their first pick, whenever that is in the 2026 draft, will be a safety, a cornerback, or Jeremiah Love. I've seen a couple of mocks. I saw one earlier today that had Jeremiah Love dropping to the Vikings. I could not find. I saw it on TV. I could not find it online. So I'll see if I can find that one, and we can go over the first round maybe next, or like the first part of the first round next week. But Jeremiah Love, if he falls, I would love to have Jeremiah Love on this team. But so their first pick in the 2026 draft will be a safety, a cornerback, or Jeremiah Love. All right, moving on to Rinkside Rundown, the final team segment of today's episode. The Wild and Frost are back fully in the swing of the regular season. Team USA did win the gold medal in both men's and women's hockey. The Wild, though, are up to 35-16-10 in the on the season. They have 80 points. They are third in the Central Division. They are third in the Western Conference. Only the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche are ahead of them in both of those places. They have a 3.28 goals for per game. That is 11th in the league. Goals against per game, they're at 2.89, which is 10th. They have 7 shutouts on the year, which is second. The power play is 26.0%. That's tied for fourth. The penalty kill is 77.6%. That is tied for 22nd. The face-off is 46.2%, which is 31st. And the shots per game is 28.8. That is 11th. Shots against is 30.3. That is 30th. Gus Bus has a record of 21, 10, and 6 on the year. The save percentage, his save percentage is a 910 save percentage, which is 13th. Goals against average is a 2.58, which is 14th on the year. He has 3 shutouts, which is tied for 5th. Jesper Wallstedt is 14, 6, and 4 on the year. Save percentage is 0.911%. That is tied for 11th. The goals against average is 2.87. It's going to be 2.85, which is 33rd in the league. Shutouts is 4th. That is tied for 2nd in the NHL. If we look back, they've played 3 games since the All-Star break. The first game was in Colorado against the Avalanche. They won that game 5-2. Boldy had 2 goals, 2 assists. Joel Eriksson-Ek had 2 goals in that one. Gus Bus played phenomenally well. He made 44 saves on 45 shots. He had to be taken out with a minute left in the game because he was puking in the net. The next 2 games were in Utah, where they lost 5-2, and against St. Louis here at home, where they lost 3-1. Looking ahead here, they play the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight, March 3rd. Tuesday, March 3rd at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time against they play the Tampa Bay Lightning. That game is on TNT, so it probably won't start until like 8:45 Central Standard Time. But then they hit the road for a couple of games because the state tournament is this weekend. If you didn't see this video, I made a state tournament predictions video. I'll leave a link to that down in the description down below if you want to watch that after you finish watching this one. They take on the Vegas Golden Knights on Friday, March 6th at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And then they travel to Colorado to take on the Avalanche at 1 p.m. on Sunday, March 8th. And then they play the Utah Mammoth back here at home at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 10th. So pretty busy week. We got 4 games from now until next Tuesday. The report here, a couple of reports and some injury and other stuff here. The first report is that the Minnesota Wild are a front runner, not the only one, but a front runner to land Vincent Trocheck. This report is coming from Will Raggett. The Trocheck was taken to Italy by the U.S. team. It was Bill Guerin was the general manager of that team. Trocheck was part of the penalty kill, the USA penalty kill that was perfect in the Olympics. I think they were like 15 for 15 or something like that. And so far this year in the NHL, Trocheck is 56.5% from the face-off dot. So the two things that the Wild struggle with the most, Trocheck does very, very well. So I would absolutely love to see the Wild go out and get him. Unfortunately for the Wild, I think that the asking price is probably going to be, they'll probably ask for Danila Yurov and like a first-round pick. They'll probably work that down because I think Yurov is a very good like third-line center for the Wild right now with the potential to be a second-line center. But I think the Rangers will at least ask for that initially. They'll probably work it down to a Charlie Stramel, and could possibly give up like a Carson Lambos or a Spacek or a Juracek or one of those younger defensemen that they have down in Iowa. I think that might be a better option there than a Danila Yurov, at least from a Wild's standpoint, to pair with a Charlie Stramel and maybe a first-round pick as well. But the Wild did make a trade recently. They made a trade with the Flyers. Again, this is a minor league trade. It was the Flyers acquired forward Boris Kachok. I apologize for that. It's Katchouk. Kachuk. And then the Wild receive Roman Schmidt, a defenseman. So I'm wondering if that just means they wanted to acquire a defenseman because they are giving up one of those, or like they're trying to give up one of those defensemen in a future trade. And so they're trying to get that defensive core, restocked down there in the AHL. Another move here. So Marcus Foligno was placed on the injured list. I could not find an exact timing on when he's expected to be back. But they did claim Robbie Fabry off of waivers from the St. Louis Blues. So he looks like he is probably going to fill in for Foligno on the fourth line. When Foligno comes back, he'll probably be a scratch player. So it just seems more like an injury replacement than an actual like needle moving waiver claim there. The other big news that came out is there was a proposal with the Minnesota Wild and the city of St. Paul proposing to the state of Minnesota. They have at least tentatively agreed to a framework for a $600 million renovation to the Grand Casino Arena complex. I don't know if that means that they're trying to renovate some of the surrounding area too, or if it's just to the actual arena. But of that $600 million, they want $200 million in public funding. So they are asking the state of Minnesota for that. The Minnesota Frost have returned to action. They lost to the Montreal Victory in their first game back. They are now seven. They have 7 regulation wins, 2 overtime or shootout wins, 3 overtime or shootout losses, and 4 regulation losses. That is good for 28 points and third in the PWHL. They have 48 goals for, which is first in the PWHL. They have 35 goals against, which is third. The power play is at 18.6%. That's fourth. And then the penalty kill is 81.8%. That is fifth in the PWHL. They play on Sunday as their next game. Their only game from now until like the following Friday. They are in Toronto against the Scepters at 11 a.m. on Sunday, March 8th. But the big piece of news here for the Frost is Kendall Coyne-Schofield has been placed on the long-term injured reserve list. And they have activated from their reserve roster Elizabeth Guilliere. So Elizabeth Guilliere will join the active roster here for the Minnesota Frost. I do have a bunch of predictions coming off the board, including a couple of Olympic predictions here. I have that the Brock Faber scores against Canada in the 2026 Olympics. I picked the wrong Wild player to score against Canada. I said Matt Boldy and or Taylor Heisey scores an Olympic OT winner in the 2026 Olympics. That was incorrect. Taylor, I was so close on that one. If I said they had just gotten a point on an OT winner, that would be correct because Taylor Heisey got an assist on the gold medal overtime winner against Canada. Filip Gustavsson has a shutout in the 2026 Olympics. He struggled a lot in the Olympics and was benched to the point where he wasn't even dressing for games. So that one is incorrect as well. I said the Wild beat the Avs in OT more than once. They have beat them in a shootout, and they only play them one more time in the regular season. So this one is incorrect. I should have just said they will beat them more than once this year because they have beaten them twice so far. And I said the U.S. men's team medals in the Olympics, which they got the ultimate medal, a gold medal. I've got 3 predictions coming on the board here. The first one is that the Wild will trade for Vincent Trocheck ahead of ahead of this year's trade deadline, which is on Friday this year. So we have a lot to talk about for next week's episode. The Wild beat the Avs on Sunday, and the Frost beat Toronto on Sunday. So the Wild are going to trade for Trocheck. These will all be off by the next episode of the 301 show. So the Wild trade for Trocheck, the Wild beat the Avs, and the Frost beat Toronto. All right, moving on to the final segment of today's episode. It is the power ranking segment where we take a Minnesota sports topic and rank it from 1 to 10. If you want to get on a power ranking segment, or if you want your idea on a power ranking segment to be the idea that we do, you can comment down below. You can email the show. You can reach out somehow, and I will look at them and come up with a list for them. Please keep them family friendly, and we'll try to get all of them at some point on. We just do one an episode, so it might take a little bit to get to everybody's if more than one person asks for them. In the past, we've done the top 10 Minnesota sports media personalities, the top 10 uniforms, the top 10 athletes from Minnesota that didn't have to play for a Minnesota team, just be from Minnesota, and then Minnesota's best coaches. Today's episode, we have the top 10 toughest athletes in Minnesota sports history. So the top 10 toughest athletes. At number 10 here, we have Kevin Garnett. Again, I think he deserves to just be on this list for having to endure those early Timberwolves teams. Just for that reason. I mean, he's obviously tough otherwise, but just for that reason, I think he deserves to be on this list. At number 9, again, one of the grittiest and toughest Wild players currently is Joel Eriksson. Comes in at number 9. He's always an agitator in front of the net for the Wild down on offense. Number 8 is his teammate, edging him out just a little bit here, is Marcus Foligno. 1 second here. Sorry, I'm just coughing way more than normal today. Trying to record this episode. But Marcus Foligno comes in at number 8. Again, he's the current enforcer on this Minnesota Wild team. Number 7 should have the all-time career sack record. Number 7 is Jared Allen. So Jared Allen, again, just massively tough player here. Number 6 might actually shock some people because he's not physically tough, but what he's doing this season has shot him up to number 6. Also tough in just that he just never gave up on his career as an undrafted free agent that has turned into a fan favorite here in Minnesota. But again, what he's doing this year is, to me, is just makes him, at least mentally, I think the toughest player, or one of the toughest players here in Minnesota. That being Naz Reid. The fact that he is playing this season and actually playing well this season too, after his sister died in a shooting is just unbelievable in my opinion. So Naz Reid comes in at number 6 on my list. Moving on to number 5. Again, this is more just resilience and toughness that way. Just coming back from injuries. Lindsey Vonn comes in at number 5. She just got injured again at these Olympics, but Lindsey Vonn is my number 5, my 5th, in my opinion, the 5th toughest athlete in Minnesota sports. Number 4, we go on a little bit of a run here of having a theme on this one. Number 4 is Alan Page. Number 3 is teammate. We got Jim Marshall. And number 2, we'll talk about all 3 of them together here. And this last guy was later, but number 2 is John Randall. Again, I just think the sport of football itself just lends itself to being the tougher sport here. So those 3 on the defensive side just, in my opinion, come in at 4, 3, and 2. If you want to put those in any order, in my opinion, I think you could. I just put John Randall at number 2 because I think he was just that much more tough. And all of these players, too, I think are very, very tough players. This is just picking the cream of the crop at this point. But number 1, the toughest player, in my opinion, in Minnesota sports history, rest in peace, is Derek Boogaard. Again, he was the original enforcer. He comes in as, in my opinion, the toughest athlete in Minnesota sports history. That'll do it for us today here on episode 58 of the 301 Show. Thank you very much for watching this episode. If you did enjoy it, even if you disagree with me, if you enjoyed the discussion and listening to at least my reasoning on stuff, please leave a like down below. It lets YouTube know that this is a good video. Subscribe to the channel as well, and then comment down below where you agree or disagree with me. I think we can have at least a respectful conversation in the comments too. If you want to, you can email the show. It's frozennorth30@gmail.com. That will be linked in the description too, if you want to email the show. But yeah, thank you again for watching up until this point, and we will see you next time on episode 59 of the 301 show. Peace.